There are employers who are willing to give ex-offenders a chance to work, but as with any career opportunity, job readiness and training are the first steps to getting hired. Here to talk more about connecting Detroiters with jobs are Nicole Sherard-Freeman, head of Detroit Employment Solutions Corporation, Mario Bueno, co-founder of Luck Incorporated, and Felecia Wiseman from IBEW Local 58. Welcome to all three of you. So, Nicole, let's talk about this challenge that that a lot of people in our community here in the city of Detroit have, which is that they've got some sort of felony involvement on their record, and there are a lot of employers who say, you know what, I'm apprehensive about that. What is Detroit Employment Solutions doing about that?
Yeah, so yes, that is in fact a challenge, and there are a couple of things underway. So one of the things that we're excited about is being the engine behind Detroit at Work. And so as the engine behind Detroit at Work, it's really our responsibility to meet people where they are, including returning citizens, obviously, and to develop opportunities, job opportunities, training opportunities that fit their backgrounds. You know, what we have really found in the employer community, Stephen, is that there's an assumption that employers don't want to hire folks with a background. But what we find when we really get into conversations with some employers is that when you ask them to really peel back what their need is, many of them are willing to change their position on that and really think through, are there jobs that require that I hire somebody without a background, and are there other jobs where really having a background doesn't matter? Yeah. So we're fortunate to have a community of employers willing to ask themselves tough questions. And you're finding them
receptive to that conversation when you want to make it.
We are. In fact, the Mayor's Workforce Development Board brought in John Hopkins a couple of years ago to talk specifically about how they built their community of ex-offenders, folks with a background, to be a large component of their workforce. They were successful at it and talked with our employers, and that helped move the needle as well.
Yeah. Mario, you are working with people who face this challenge, but you have this incredible personal story also about coming back from prison to try to rebuild a life. Tell us a little bit about that and about the work you're doing.
Thank you again. I'm humbled to be here. So at 16, unfortunately, you become like the ones you're around the most. And from 13 to 16, I socialized and associated with drug dealers, a culture that embraced paradigms that said it was okay to rob and hurt people, and specifically drug dealers. So I served 19 years from the age of 16 in 16 different adult prisons for the robbery and murder of a guy during a drug deal. And throughout that process, now 20-something years later, I'm a co-founder of Luck Inc., a nonprofit who is currently partnered with DESC and Serco Metro in relation to trying to meet the needs of men returning from prison. Basic needs, as the last panel talked about in relation to the impoverished school children. We talk about trying to guide people towards self-actualization, but we know that if you're hungry, right? Jesus turned 5 fish into 5,000 because their stomachs would have been growling, they wouldn't have heard them, right? So they need their basic needs met. And on top of that, when you're talking about returning citizens, they do need a skill trade. They do need a cognitive restructuring component pre-release, because this is physics, it's not philosophy. Whatever they're doing before they come home, they're gonna do that out here. And then lastly, they need an opportunity.
And what are we seeing inside the correction system now in terms of trying to get people ready to come back to communities and be ready for it?
So I've been released 4 years now. And before I left, they were beginning a vocational village. And the vocational village, I think this is a good example of what that I'm sure mirrors. I haven't gone back to that institution, but they've also started a second vocational village. The conflict I think that we run into is that the layperson, one who has not walked the proverbial mile, so to speak, I think they lack the understanding that while we do have thinking for change and anger management and all these different restructuring cognitive components in the Department of Corrections repertoire of programs, you teach them that program for 2 hours a week, but there's 168 hours in that week. Then we put them back in a culture and environment that don't respect the rules of engagement, the pro-social rules of engagement that we're trying to teach them.
Felecia, IBEW, of course, works with lots of people to try to get them opportunities. Talk about that component that involves returning citizens.
Well, we don't have anything that preclude you from being in the trades. When you're filling out an application, just like with anybody else, there's a box there that says, are you a felon? You just need to be truthful and say, check that box that says yes.
Right, but the box itself is sometimes deterrent, right? If I am somebody who's got a felony, I see that box, I think, this is not a job for me.
Well, no, that's not true, because that does not stop you from getting into the trades. It may prevent you from being on certain work projects, but that's not all of the work projects. So when you let us know, yes, I am a felon, you know, so when you say I won't go to a job, then we know, oh, okay, this is why he won't go to the Air Force Base, because he has his felony on his record. He's not going to pass the background check, and we know that up front.
And are you able to help negotiate that process for some of these returning citizens? I would think that, again, the awareness of that is one of the big issues.
Yes, we, Local 58 itself, we have a program where we're going into Ionia, and they have the men there who are ready to return to society, and just working with them and letting them know the things that they need to do. We have a bigger problem with people being on drugs and not being able to pass a drug test than we do that you're a felony, that you have a felony on your record. So those things definitely are not, you know, some people may think they're deterrent, but they're not. It only, like I said, prevents you from being on certain projects, but it does not prevent you from being in the trade. It gives you a leg up in most times.
Nicole, awareness is one of the things that I think is really obvious from what we're hearing here in terms of what is available, but then it's also, you know, identification of folks inside the correction system that we sort of need to get to still.
That's right. And so Mario talked a little bit about Vocational Village. One of the other projects that we're really proud of is having actual services and training opportunities inside Ryan Correctional Facility and Macomb Correctional Facility, so that as guys are getting ready to re-enter society, we have a culinary arts program that runs inside the system that, you know, starts to introduce people to careers and options and opportunities before they're out.
Mario, you and I have talked before about the attitude of writing people off as young people when they make mistakes. That's another one of the prongs here, is this idea that you screwed up, so you're out, and you're out for good.
Yeah, absolutely. It just serendipitously. So yesterday, as I was leaving a meeting to pick up a client of Serco and DSC, I was leaving a meeting that actually the topic was homelessness. And so I end up getting a flat tire. Long story short, I wasn't supposed to be in this gas station, and I see a young black man with 2 duffel bags. It was clearly late teens. So I fill my tank up and I walk over there and I break the ice because I don't know how to shut up, right? And so I say, do you need a ride? You know, and I introduced myself in that environment. It was a very high risk environment. I know the rules of engagement. And he looked at me and he said, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm homeless. I said, really? I said, well, look, I got to pick up a client. We're going to take him to the Muslim Center for therapy, whatever. And then you can just ride around, we'll talk. So I just sat and listened the whole time, listened to it, and just, you know, drew out, and I poured in. And towards the end of the night, I took him to the house that Lucky has just got. We're coming out of pocket to create an environment that's conducive to reintegration. I mean, we believe in a belief system that says, you know, the environment's so important. God spent the first 5 days creating and just 1 day to create man. So we're out there. He meets the whole crew. We're talking, and I take him to my car, and I pull out a key. I said, this is your key. And he looked at me. He said, what do I owe you? And I got a little closer, and I said, and I went on a tangent on what he owes me, all intangibles, right? I told him, you're going to succeed. You're going to manifest the God that's in you. You're going to become. You're going to find your gifting and your dominion, and money will chase you. And I said, then one day you'll be able to show someone else, like Moses, right? He said, Mario, no one's ever done that for me. And I looked at him, I said, you know what? I've needed things like this. No one did it for me. Now I'm going to do it for you, and you can do it for others. Point being is this: he's 19 with a 5th grade education in Detroit. We're not talking about like Cambodia. You know what I'm saying? In Detroit. And so when do we literally live as if we are the church, or do we just go to church on Sundays? Right? So that's what we have to do. If there's a void, fill it. And then you'll figure out how you're going to pay for it.
A lot of the work is up front as opposed to on the back end. So thank you all three for being here.
I appreciate it, humble.
On Detroit.